Alright, economics video, I believe. I believe I'm recording. Yep. Yeah, I can't tell for some reason. Anyway, yeah, generalist guy from Bloggerdome, and other places. Anyway, economics video, bonds, stocks, that kind of crap, banks. So anyway, yeah, good video. You know, it's, yeah, okay, the blame game. What part of the system is broken? And it's really easy to just argue that the regulators dropped the ball. But we did deregulate. So, again, you know, how can you blame regulators for a deregulated environment? You know, so that doesn't really work either. But really, we know the game was bullshit. We know parts of the game, anyway, are bullshit. So we're back sort of, I mean, some of this is back to this argument about whether you can, let's see how to put this. The idea that you would print cash instead of issuing bonds. So essentially this argument that the bank should be the government and the government should just print money is, in my opinion, preposterous. Just because we know that's not going to work. Currency is not the same thing as bonds and stocks and all that crap. So the two have to be treated different, in my opinion, because they have a different function. Currency is just a placeholder. It's you know, it's the real game. It's a real claim to direct ownership, where bonds are what they are. You get interest because they're a loan, because they are a risk mechanism. They're not supposed to be a sure thing. Obviously, we would be a sure thing to ourselves if we can loan ourselves money. But I guess I would anticipate that there would have to be some rule that regulates how the government would print the money, because you know that it was a willful act, the deficit spending. And it would end up being a willful act to print cash. And the more things got desperate, the more desperate things got. Let's say you had that environment where the government could just print cash, a free loan, essentially, loan itself money for free. Wouldn't that create a problem? Because that would be direct inflation. It wouldn't be slow inflation, it'd be pretty direct inflation. And then let's say you're caught up in a 10% inflation spiral. What's your solution going to be? Raise taxes to pay the bills? Cut spending, create unemployment. So in the middle of a recession, your options are, both of your corrective options are negative in the short run. And who's going to vote for that? So, yeah, what people are going to vote for is the German solution of print more money. You know, print more money, print more money. And so they just end up printing all the money and turning it all into crap. And that's not going to, I just don't see how that could work. I mean, obviously it works okay if everybody keeps up with the inflation created, if wages keep growing. But that's not going to happen, because you'll have a Richard Nixon, and he'll come along and say, even though he's a Republican, let's have wage and price controls. And so the rich will keep getting rich, the stock market will keep going up, but everybody else's wages will stay where they are, and, you know, and so that's not going to work, because the rich get richer again. And really that's what this whole argument's about, is what we value, what we give currency for. And so I myself don't have a real problem. I don't mind banks financing mortgages. I do mind if they're not going to collateralize them properly. So if you have a housing bubble, you should be able to figure out that when somebody's buying a $500 house that 10 years ago was worth $25,000, there might be a problem there. And that maybe you haven't collateralized that loan if the person only put $5 down. You know, and they have no way to pay the mortgage. But the idea of, you know, printing cash in exchange for collateralized lending, there's nothing wrong with that. That will work. And so if all the banking crisis was a mortgage crisis, I'd say, who cares? Yeah, fix the mortgage problem, you fix the problem. But that's not what this is about. It's a lot bigger than that. That's just the maybe a weakest card in the house of cards, but it is a house of cards. There's all kinds of cards on top of that card. You know, the derivatives and the rest of the nonsense, as you point out in the video. But really, the fundamental argument comes down to what is valued. And I think we would agree that ownership is not entitlement. It's just not. I mean, unless you earn the ownership in a way. So, you know, this whole idea that somebody can, like I can paint a brilliant painting and that somehow my ancestors collect royalties on it is idiotic. The whole idea that you inherit the ownership claims of the previous generation is called monarchy. You know, it's really stupid. All right? You're not born a noble man. You become a noble man. You know, these things are earned. They aren't things you acquire through birth. And so I'm very comfortable with having a system that that bestows currency for work, not for ownership. Yeah. It's almost like they should allow a fake currency. Let the stock market play in monopoly dollars, not real ones, or something like that. But that's what this whole crisis is. It's a crisis of over-evaluations and, you know, fake assets, uncollateralized nonsense. Yeah, and the credit default swaps, I guess, are sort of irrelevant. It's just a bankrupt guy saying, I'll insure your bankruptcy. I mean, they're obviously both bankrupt. And they're just using these fake pieces of paper. They just write on the piece of paper, here's $5 million. Okay, thank you. And I'll give you $5 million. Okay, thank you. And now they're both claiming to have $5 million because they wrote on a piece of paper, I have $5 million. And that's just another catch in the system that they're allowed to do that. But again, is that the regulator's fault or the regulation's fault? So ultimately, Congress is responsible for all of this shit. They make the law, and the law is what's inadequate. Really inadequate. And what else is there to say? Yeah, so there's the how do you fix it problem. You know, that's a big problem. You know, but you don't go back to a standard. You don't go back to, you know, only creating investment. And that's what this deficit stuff is supposed to be made out of. It's supposed to be called investment capital, where you pay now, and then you gain later. And but everybody wants to do it in a painless way. They want to do it in a way that doesn't cost anything, and that's sort of impossible. You can't create a fake resource without making it real eventually. And they just keep pretending that there's a certain amount of the economy that they can just make out of nothing, and that there's somehow that works. And it doesn't. I mean, it's like having an orchard and planting half of it with real trees, and then just drawing a picture of a tree and sticking it in there and saying, now the orchard is bigger and it's going to produce more fruit. Well, it won't, because they're fake trees. I guess I'm not an alright metaphor. So deficit spending, I don't think is ever reasonable. I think you invest based on capacity. Full employment is a rational objective. Get the most productivity out of people possible. That's good. So print enough money to employ people doing productive work. Paying them to do nothing is probably a zero-sum game. It probably doesn't cost you anything, but it probably doesn't gain you anything either. So, you know, no point in doing that. You just force somebody to work for nothing. I mean, nothing's accomplished in their sweat, so sweat for no productivity is pointless. But that's the only value, is work. Work is value. That's it. There's nothing. There's no other way to put this. And obviously, in a desperation economy, you'll get more work out of people. So in that sense, it's more productive by definition, because you're using the whip and you're forcing the people to work. But the downside is, yeah, like I say, that you don't match people to the work. So there's an inefficiency there. And the systems you end up creating to keep the whip in place, the capitalist whip, creates all kinds of grotesque inefficiencies, where businesses aren't competing to make the best product, they're competing to market the best, to sing and dance the best. They're doing something completely obtuse to the productive purpose. So there's a lot of wasted work created by that mechanism. So on balance, I'd say that doesn't work, because it just creates too much redundancy, too much waste, too much bankruptcy. You don't want a gladiator war where the gladiators are actually killed. You want them to be able to beat each other up a little, but you don't want the waste of death and the waste of potential. Somebody could just have a bad day. I mean, gladiator, I got a headache today. Could have a headache. And so he's just off his mark. Why kill it? Why destroy somebody who could be victorious tomorrow? And that's the system. That's what capitalism does. It just keeps wasting because it has this write-off of bankruptcy that nobody has to finance. The consumers have to pay that bill. The general economy pays that tax. That's the price of doing business, is insurance against your bankruptcy. And you're going to have to pay it one way or the other, because it's built into the pricing. It's built into the venture capitalist risk equation. He's going to demand interest for that risk. So anyway, yeah, so I'm just saying we get rid of all this crap, because most of this capital is held by people with selfish motives, and those motives create Enrons. They don't build Hoover Dams. They maximize profit and minimize risk to the investor. Those aren't things that are good for civilization. They're just good for individual rich people. So I say, yeah, the rational thing is to have some sort of systematic, rational bureaucracy established that decides what's worth investing in and invests in it, takes the risk and apportions the risk to everything equally and charges no interest above the cost of paying for their mistakes. And the checks and balances can be built into these systems, but we just don't do it. It's like even the three branches of government. The idea is good, but the idea was ruined because you allow the same geographic monopolies to control each branch of government. So they're not independent. They're thoroughly interwoven. You don't get on the court, the federal court, unless you know somebody politically, unless you've done the system, some party, some favors. If you haven't paid a price to that party, you will not get on a court. How's that an independent branch of government? The governors choose who's going, and the legislature choose who's going to be the attorney general. I mean, so the thing that's supposed to be oversighting the government is chosen by the government. It's like choosing the cop that's going to walk your beat in front of your house. You're just going to choose a cop who thinks like you and feels like you and believes like you, and cheat the way you will, and let you cheat the way he would cheat. Some bullshit on that. So, but yeah, it's a system, and the system is broken because it's not being built to be a system. It's been built by incremental bits of chaos, and it has non-starters built into it, things that are just automatically going to break it, things that create automatic unfairness and very negative incentives. And that would be inheritance. Just the game is broken. It's a cheat. It's a broken race. So you don't allow people to inherit fortunes. You allow them to inherit advantage, and that's it. But not preposterous advantage. It's a grotesque advantage. And that'll put the money back in the system. That'll put it back in the hands of the consumer and the producer. Those are the only two legitimate forces here, are the producers and the consumers. These owners are just wasted baggage. They're not necessary. We can live without them. No, we'll live better without them. That's the whole point. They just waste resources. Nobody creates jobs. Jobs are created by demand. It's that simple. And and the availability of employment, even. The ability to do the job. So it's just, efficiency is not going to happen by accident. Efficiency is something that has to be deliberately produced. You have to design the round wheel. You have to design the ball bearings on the to reduce the friction. You have to design in the application of the grease, or it's just not going to work. The mechanism will fail, and that's the wheel the human race is running on. It's rickety, it's undesigned, and it's fail. It'll keep failing. Yeah. Anyway, I guess I've completed the video portion of the video. Yeah. So I think the video portion of the video will end now. There's that pretty dogwood. One of the pink variety. Yeah. Anyway, so till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. People aren't here. Phooey. Yeah, I need certain people to be certain places. Well, it's a good thing it's going to rain, because this is all dry again. There's grass growing here. I swear there is. I just know it. I'll go look over here. This should be more fruitful. All right, come on, grass. Fairly sparse. Yeah, come on. This fancy modern grass seed sucks. It's just sitting there. Somebody drove the tractor over it. Good. Yeah, well, whatever. Shit happens and such. Yeah, this video's over. Sorry. Yeah, it was over a little while ago. There's a cramp on the lawn. Here, cramp. I really thought there'd be something growing here. Maybe cut it all off. Yeah, that's it. The lawnmower cut it all off. Blame that. Fuck. Anyway, till next time. And such.